Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Our show is a production of our nonprofit organization, the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, our THCF, and our affiliated political committee, the Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp, or CRRH. We have an exciting show for you tonight. Tim Pate and Wolfie are here to play some music for you, as is Don Dupay, retired Portland police detective. We'll be taking your phone calls about ending adult marijuana prohibition, medical marijuana, and restoring industrial hemp here in just a little bit. We have some film clips we'll be playing later on and some other exciting stuff, so stay tuned. But let's start out with our infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves. All right, we only have a couple of hemp news stories for you tonight. Our first story is from Michigan. Michigan voters are to decide municipal cannabis medical issues. From Flint, Michigan, Flint voters will decide next month on a municipal initiative that seeks to exempt qualified patients from local prosecution if they possess and use cannabis under a physician's recommendation. Sponsored by the Flint Coalition for Compassionate Care, Proposal 1 amends city law so that the possession of cannabis and cannabis paraphernalia by authorized patients would no longer be a criminal offense. Proponents submitted approximately 2,000 signatures from local voters last August to qualify the measure on the 2007 ballot. The Flint Coalition for Compassionate Care co-director Charles Snyder said, quote, "A win in Flint would send a powerful message to Michigan citizens," end quote. Charles Snyder uses cannabis medicinally to treat the symptoms of nail patella syndrome, a rare bone disease, and added, quote, "Having already won in 4 major Michigan cities, a win in Flint would help create the momentum and support necessary to put forward a statewide ballot initiative before Michigan voters in 2008. In fact, end quote. In fact, there's been talk that the Marijuana Policy Project was going to fund such an initiative. In Michigan, Ann Arbor, Detroit, Ferndale, and Traverse City have approved similar citizen voter initiatives since 2004. Flint citizens will vote on the measure on Tuesday, February 27th, 2007. For more information, you can look at the Minnesota Normal site. That's MINORML.org. Our next story is coming up momentarily. The White House announces the dates and locations for a 2007 Regional Drug Summit testing. The White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, the ONDCP, as they're called as an acronym, or the Evil Empire, as we in the marijuana movement call them, will once again sponsor a series of regional summits to encourage middle school and high school administrators to enact federally sponsored random student drug testing. The 2007 summits will mark the 4th consecutive year that the White House is funding the symposiums, which are scheduled to take place this winter and spring in Charleston, South Carolina, January 24th, in Newark, New Jersey on February 27th, Honolulu, Hawaii on March 27th, and Las Vegas, Nevada on April 24th. Under the newly revised federal guidelines, federal education funds may be provided to public schools for up to 4 years to pay for the implementation of random drug testing programs for students who participate in competitive extracurricular activities. Since 2005, the Education Department has appropriated more than $20 million to various school districts to pay for random drug testing programs. Federal grant funds may not be used to pay for separate drug education and or prevention curricula to train school staff officials on how to implement drug testing. Only federal investigators are eligible to review data collected by the school programs, which will be evaluated as part of a forthcoming federal assessment of the efficacy and random drug testing to deter illicit student drug use. A previous evaluation of student drug testing programs conducted by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation concluded, quote, drug testing as practiced in recent years in American secondary schools does not prevent nor inhibit student drug use, end quote. Investigators collected data from 894 schools and 94,000 students and found that at every grade level studied, the 8th, 10th, and 12th grades, students reported using illicit drugs at virtually identical rates in schools that drug tested versus those that did not. Currently, only 5% of schools randomly drug test student athletes, and some 2% of school test students who participate in extracurricular activities other than athletics. Both the National Education Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics oppose such drug testing of students. And that's the end of our hemp news for tonight. We're going to run a brief video as I believe Tim Pate and Wolfie provide some musical accompaniment. And here they are. How you doing tonight, Tim?
I'm doing good. How are you tonight?
Very well, very well.
The weather hasn't gotten you down too much?
Oh, no, not at all. I was in Denver on Monday and Tuesday, and it was nice, warm, and sunny there. 55 was the high.
That's not
But I hear their high tomorrow in Denver will be 0, so I'm glad I left before that game.
Well, you know, I wrote this song one night when I was sitting in Eugene, and it was really cold, and it was windy, and I wanted to get out of town and go up into the mountains and go to my friends who had a hot tub and had some grass. So that's what the song is about.
All right.
You know, one of these nights like tonight.
All right. Thank you, Tim and Wolfie, and our studio audience here. How are you doing this week, Don?
Well, I'm
seeing?
surviving cold. I still got 2 inches of snow in my house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you're just out in Gresham.
I'm, way out in Gresham.
Ah, I
No,
see.
Gresham is way out, as far as the weather's
It's
concerned.
a few hundred feet
Yeah,
higher up.
yeah.
You're already a little higher. So, if you have a question out there for us tonight about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, or help with medical marijuana, then give us a call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. This is the 12th, isn't it?
That's what it says up there,
That's
yeah.
what it says, the 12th of January 2007. So if you're not watching on the 12th of January 2007, then no need in calling in. But if you are, give us a call. So you've got snow on the ground, and I just got back. We saw lots of patients in Denver, and
Good for
reopening
Denver.
our office there. This show, in fact, is airing. We took 8 tapes also to Denver, so it's airing there every Tuesday and Thursday night on cable channel 57.
Good.
So
Excellent.
Cannabis Common
Right on
Sense
Denver.
spreads everywhere. There's a couple things we have to announce this evening. One is that there is tomorrow, for medical marijuana patients, Oregon Normal will be having their once-a-month medical marijuana meeting at the corner of Southeast 49th and Hawthorne at the Hawthorne Street Theater, Sabala's Hawthorne Street Theater. The doors close at high noon, so if you want to get in, you need to be there about 11:30. It's limited to Oregon Normal members, but you can get a membership at the door. It's also limited to card holders only, so you have to have either a patient or a caregiver card holder to participate. That's an Oregon State permit. We do have a caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, I have a question about the growing of hemp products for building purposes only. I'm not so much for the THC program, although I do utilize it sometimes, but we seem to be cutting down a lot of our forest and our old growth trees for building, let's just say, homes and different types of products that we use our forest from. Why don't we, which hemp grows so much faster than our forest products do, why aren't we growing hemp to utilize that in building homes and different kinds of products like that? I hope I'm making sense to you, but it's
Well, it makes perfect sense to me. Just to give you a little background, according to this book out there by a fellow named Rowan called The Great Book of Hemp, I was the first person to import hemp fabric and hemp paper into North America in several generations. And I did it as a business, and I'm one of the experts on hemp fiber here in the United States. But that aside, I can tell you the main reason that hemp was prohibited was to protect the petrochemical industries. They didn't want to compete with hemp seed oil and hemp fiber products. They had a lot of money in forests and petrochemicals, and they realized that the price of hemp had dropped 100 to 1. Back at the turn of this century, a new device, the decorticator, was invented to process hemp fiber. Now, up to that point, hemp was very expensive and one of the most labor-intensive crops. And just as when the cotton gin had been introduced back in the 1820s, the price of cotton dropped 100-fold. When this decorticator was introduced at the turn of the 20th century, back in 1900, the price of hemp fiber dropped 100-fold. And right as that happened, a group of powerful industrialists that many of us believe were led by Andrew Mellon realized that a lot of their holdings were going to be devalued in energy and petrochemicals, and they decided to create a misinformation campaign that we know of as Reefer Madness, named after that movie where it showed teenagers using marijuana and killing themselves and their friends. Well, you know, that was ridiculous, and a lot of us laugh at that today, but at that time no one knew about this, and they used this term marijuana, which was from a Hispanic song. It actually came from that song La Cucaracha, but it was a term used for marijuana, but it was a slang term. And so by using that, they played on racist fears. You know, we had the Jim Crow laws in place at that time, and racism was rampant and enforced by law.
Yeah.
And so they created this thing called marijuana and said it was a deadly new drug. Well, in fact, it was hemp, and it had been grown traditionally. The Romans had grown it. The first agricultural societies had grown it. According to Carl Sagan, hemp was grown by the earliest agricultural societies and could well be the first crop that led humans and mankind to develop agriculture. So that, I think, is the reason that cannabis was prohibited.
Yeah,
I think Tim here wants to say something, too.
When I first got involved with the hemp movement myself, I was actually working with Bill Conti and David Seaver who had C&S Specialty Builder Supply, and we were the primary research and development arm of the hemp movement at the time for industrial uses of hemp.
Yeah.
We developed through Washington State University hemp boards. I still have one of the original boards at home that I carry, in my lockbox because it's valuable. And we were deeply involved in research for that for the purpose that your original question was, what about building? Why can't we use that rather than cutting down trees? And our research, proved that no matter which way you looked at it, yes, that was the most logical use of the fiber. Not only do you have the bast fiber on the outside, which is as long as the fiber of
the stalk is tall.
The stalk is tall, correct. Yes. And so the next longest fiber in the wood products industry is 3/4 of an inch long, and that is an old growth fir tree in the best growing forest in the world, which was the Pacific Northwest. And so you've got the potential for 14 feet long fibers that we sent off to the University of
Washington
Chicago.
State University.
We sent it off to Chicago University as
Uh-huh.
well, and we used their composites. They're the ones who put the composites together to make the heat shields for the space shuttle. And they they took some of their composite material and put it with our longest fibers, and they didn't have a machine that could break that thing. And whenever we tested our wood, it always met or surpassed every standard in the market, every single standard in the wood products market. I grew up in construction, so that impressed me. Just the fact that we can grow this on an annual basis. Instead of cutting down 400-year-old trees, we can grow an annual crop and deal with our fiber issues.
Exactly.
So that's my word on that.
Well answered.
Well, gentlemen, I thank you for your time, and it's cannabis common sense. Let's just use some common sense. And I really, when it comes down to it, I think I talked to a gentleman earlier. He says it comes down to, basic line is moolah money, and it's politics. And it's a shame that it has to be that way. I know that hemp grows so fast, like the gentleman was saying, that the fiber content is so much better than our wood products that we have today. Well, I really enjoy your program, and boy, I wish people would just grow up and listen. And I thank you very much.
Eventually, I think the environment's going to force that to happen. You're absolutely right about it being money. It's really not about drugs. It's not about marijuana. It's about money and the continued centralization of economic and political control, as I've been saying for years. And the sooner the sale of marijuana to adults is regulated, the sooner hemp fiber will be treated like any other crop. And so I think that's a lot of people try to separate the issues, but in fact it's the same plant, and until cannabis is legal, the regulations imposed on industrial hemp will prohibit it from meeting its potential.
Yeah.
Thanks for your call. And if you're out there and you have a call for us, give us a call at 503-288-4448. We're live in Portland, Oregon on the 12th of January, 2007. We can take your calls right up to the top of the hour. We have a box of hemp cereal here that's not made with the fiber at all. It's made from the seeds. The seeds are, in addition to being very, very nutritious, they're also very high in oil. In fact, hemp seed produces 3 times more seed oil than any other seed oil crop. But it's very nutritious, and you can pick this up at a lot of different stores here, and a lot of us are fans of hemp seed foods.
Is it safe? Yes, it's safe and very good.
Yep. We have an event here on the Portland waterfront every September, the Hemp Stalk Festival, and we're going to be having another one coming up on the 8th and 9th of September. We're lining up acts and everything right now, and we're starting to organize. So if you are one of our volunteers that helped last year, or whether you weren't or are, you want to be a volunteer that helps this year, give us a call. We are looking for volunteers, so call our office number there at 503-235-4606 and just leave a message saying you want to be a hemp stalk volunteer, and we can certainly use your help. I know we had dozens of volunteers, maybe around 50 or so, that helped put it together last year, and we expect it to be larger, so we're going to need more this year. So give that number a call. We do have another caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on the show. Hello, caller.
Yeah, hi there. I
Hi.
was kind of... Hello?
Yeah.
Oh. It's you.
Hi.
Okay, yeah. I was kind of curious to know if there was a way with the legalization process, if people with cards, basically, like in the near future, I mean, I agree with all your statements about the wood industry and the fiber industry and everything, if there would be a way maybe in the future to incorporate the legal growers as farmers for the fiber products.
Well, I've recently in
What
our
are your
office.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've recently in our office started having medical marijuana gardeners donate their fiber to us, and we're going to make a batch of paper out of it here in the spring. And we're starting to grow a little mound of hemp fiber, so if you're out there and you have extra stalks and stems you want to bring by to our office here in the Portland area, we're taking those. We're not set up to take them in our Seattle or Denver offices at this point, but we are doing that. And so in terms of incorporating current medical marijuana gardeners into producing industrial hemp, there are a lot of farmers out there that would like to grow industrial hemp throughout the state, throughout the country, because right now we're importing it. We're importing it from Canada and in Europe. And in fact, in Europe, industrial hemp fiber is the highest subsidized crop. They subsidize it to the tune of over $350 an acre, or over $700 per hectare. And so I know the farmers are looking for that, and I think it's going to open up when hemp is regulated, when marijuana is legally sold to adults, and industrial hemp is freely available and not regulated. Then we will see a burgeoning economy. And the thing about petrochemicals is it's capital intensive. You can't enter that field unless you're very, very wealthy, with tens of millions, hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars, where industrial hemp fiber and seed oil and food products can be entered by just about anybody, and will decentralize the wealth instead of centralizing it in the hands of the Saudi Arabians. So I think it's something that economics will dictate we return to in the very near future. Did that answer your question?
Question. When they go... Yes, sir. When they go with the commercializing of it, won't it lose a lot of its, per se, artisticness? I grew up in Northern California,
well, I think
where things are done for a purpose. The balances, and the growers are really into their plants.
Yeah, I'm like that.
I'm like that.
We're really into our plants too.
All those corn farmers in Nebraska, they love those.
I just worry that when it goes commercial, it'll just be like tobacco or anything like that. It'll just be thrown out in the field and garden regularly, and nobody will do the balancing and the pHing and all that, and it'll just be like a generalized product like a cigarette.
I think it will be more like a wine. There's a lot of different vintners out there producing. There's Gallo wines in these huge fields that are relatively inexpensive, and we have our fine local wines throughout the Northwest and California that aim for a higher niche. To grow really good cannabis, it takes care, and it takes careful handling not to knock all the trichromes off. So there's going to be a variety of products available one of these days. There's going to be a lot of room open for entrepreneurs at every stage of that, I believe. I think the environment and...
Well, thank you, sir. You've been very informative.
Thank you. Thanks for your call. Thanks for calling. If you're out there and you have a question for us tonight, then give us a call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448.
We're not only informative, we tell the truth, whether the government wants us to or not.
And we know that a lot of people in the government don't. I mean, there are some people out there in the government that are completely honest and want to know the truth. And there are some people out there in the government that want to take over everything and put it in the hands of the corporate state. And I think they call that fascism, don't they?
I think so. Making our kids
like fascism.
Making our kids pee in a jar.
Totalitarianism, that's another even more awful form of it. But when you put the corporations in charge, it's more of a fascist model. And so I think maybe future elections will pull us away from that, but time will tell, won't it?
Corporation is manufacturing the P-test they want these kids to take.
Yeah.
That's where the money is.
There's a lot of it there.
Yeah.
We have another caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I can barely hear you on my end.
Well, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. My question is a follow-up question to the first caller. Have you heard anything about whether or not State Senator Provansky has introduced legislation this session or is going to regarding the legalization of industrial hemp?
Well, Provansky,
like
who is a Lane County prosecutor and on the board of directors of the country fair down there west of Eugene, has introduced a hemp bill every year since 1995.
Oh, good.
So
okay,
that's
I
what
got more
he's going to
time
work
on
on
my
his
hands
11th
this year to help
session.
him along with that, as well as some of my friends.
Yeah, and I've been very supportive of it, and I'm sure he's going to do that again. He had a hearing last session, and that was the first time it ever gotten a hearing. The Republicans had always quashed that hearing before. And I'm pretty sure, given the turn of control in the legislature, now that the Democrats control both houses here in Oregon, that the bill will go a little bit farther and maybe even pass in the legislature. North Dakota just started taking applications for industrial hemp farming this month, even though they haven't issued those licenses yet, and they have to be okayed by the Drug Enforcement Administration in Washington, by the federal government. But, with the Democrats in control of Congress in the United States, down in Washington, D.C., I think we can see some changes this year. At least we can hope. They'll probably be vetoed by Bush Jr., but you never know.
Back in 1998, I ran as a Libertarian against then State Representative Ben Westland. And one of my issues was...
The cocaine felon.
Excuse me?
He's a cocaine felon. He was arrested for cocaine.
I know it.
By Kevin Mann.
Now that he's a Democrat, I'm thinking he'll be maybe for this instead of vehemently against it like he was when I ran against him. So we may have another person on our side. I don't know.
He seems to be changing. He just changed his affiliation from Republican to Democrat.
Yes, he has.
So he's evolving too.
Okay, well, thank you for the info. We'll get on this.
All right, thanks for your call.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I would recommend you contact your state legislators and urge them to support Provansky's bill on industrial hemp. We don't have the number on that at this point, but we will soon. There's also work toward establishing state dispensaries and other dispensaries out there. And so I recommend you contact your state legislator and urge them to support the concept of having medical marijuana patients have state dispensaries that can dispense medical marijuana to patients who can't grow it for themselves. That's sorely needed by
needed dispensaries.
Majority of medical patients, and I know there's some talk about OSU, Oregon State University, farmers and researchers working on that. So stay tuned. The legislative session's just begun. I'm sure we'll see a lot of developments in the next few months. We have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show. Hello.
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 Hey.
Are you there?
We are here. Are you there?
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Let's talk.
My question to you is, I was incarcerated, and I had a medical marijuana card when I first got incarcerated.
Yeah.
And make a long story short, I'm not incarcerated no longer, but I'm on an AIP program, which is a transitional leave. And my question to you is, my parole officer is trying to tell me that I'm not legal to smoke medical marijuana while on transitional leave, and which was I was on parole before I got incarcerated, and it was fine. My parole officer is
Do you have an attorney?
At this time, I don't.
What you need to do is go to the judge who imposed your sentence and ask him if you can use medical marijuana, and he'll have to tell. If your parole officer is saying no, then he's going to have to tell the parole officer that it's allowed. And so
allowed.
If the parole officer is imposing it on its own, you'll have, and it will help if you have an attorney, obviously, go into court and have, I think they call it an ex parte motion, and ask the judge to rule that you can use medical marijuana during this transitional program. But glad to hear you're out.
Okay, I appreciate it. And another thing, can you recommend an attorney?
Sure. Are you in the Portland area?
Yes, I am.
Then I recommend Paul Loney. Paul Loney and Ann Whitty's another good attorney that we've used a lot. Both of them believe in the cause and are very reasonable. So we're not allowed to promote anything economically on cable television. But both of those attorneys believe in our cause and have been very supportive for a number of years. And I know they've worked at reasonable rates as well.
Okay, well, I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. And if you need more information, you can call that number on your screen, leave a message, and we'll get back with you if you need the phone numbers on those attorneys.
Take care.
Good luck.
Thanks for calling.
Want to also remind those viewers out there that do have a criminal history background, a felony, even regardless of what it's for, you can vote, and you should register to vote. There are a lot of states that don't allow people who are felons to vote, but Oregon, since the 1950s, has allowed all people who are not incarcerated to vote. So remember to register, vote, and participate, because if we don't, those people who want to lock us up will. So we've got to vote and take control away from the corporations and put it back in the hands of the people where it belongs.
That's right. Amen.
So I think are they going to run another video in there? Any talk? Well, I think we should. I think we should. You want to sing another song, Tim?
Yeah, I think we can for you.
Okay. Let's do it. What do you think of that? Chromes, perhaps, or
well, you know, we're putting something together. We certainly are.
That's good.
That's some shows we've got coming up this year, so who knows what might happen in the future.
That's true. There's some talk of some major stars coming out, and boy, that would be exciting, wouldn't it?
We're going to have some dancing and playing this year, right? And it's going to be hip related. There's no doubt about it.
So stay tuned. Hey, we have another caller. Hi, caller. You're on the show.
Yes, I had kind of a medical issue. I was wishing that Dr. Levesque was still there, but for whatever you can handle of the medical issues, try to steer me through it. It could be too complex of a story. I'll try to cut to the chase.
I'm working with doctors every day of the week, you know.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was hospitalized recently, and boy, I'm kind of leery to go into too many of the details, so I'll be sketchy, and if you need to hone me in, do.
Okay.
But at any rate, I'm a kidney transplant patient, and I had an infection, and I admitted to one of the doctors in my medical workup that, I did this and that recreationally, very little, but did smoke marijuana medically, and nothing passed of it that day. But the following day, several doctors, in making their rounds, confronted me about the marijuana usage, the marijuana issue, and said that there was recent studies that a mold can be transmitted to you, the mold infections, and that's being a transplant patient, I'm immunosuppressed, and I needed to stop this marijuana smoking immediately, and it came up a couple times. I felt pretty uncomfortable ethically, and also the transplant issue. So a lot of issues. I'm just throwing this event out at you, and
I'm glad you have.
Looking for feedback.
Well, you know, I've heard a lot of patients who've been on the waiting list for organs like kidneys and livers, when they tell the doctors about using medicinal marijuana, they're taken off that list, and that's basically, a death sentence if you're, you need to have that.
That's my understanding too, and I brought that up, and they said, well, if it ceases entirely at this point, you wouldn't be considered that, but boy, I don't know what I should do. Obviously, you can't.
Now, you've already had this transplant?
I'm sorry?
Have you already had the transplant?
Yes, I've had it.
Well, they can't open you up and take it back out again, thank goodness.
I'm sorry?
Right. They can't open you up and take it back out again, thank goodness. And hopefully that's going to work for you.
There are retransplantation issues constantly in these things, and
sure.
I'm wondering if I don't know what to do, really.
Well, it's a life or death issue for you, I know, and hopefully you won't need a retransplant of your kidneys there. But there are alternatives to smoking cannabis. I quit smoking cannabis per se, and just vaporize. However, if they're drug testing you, then that's going to show up as a positive as well. I recommend, while you're under their direct care, that you should probably cease using cannabis and comply with their requirements.
I agree with that. I was wondering, I've never had success using it orally, but I would imagine that if I would figure out a way to use an oral tincture, that would be within the confines of their advice against its use. But
that would negate their complaints entirely, of course.
That's what I'm seeing.
But the fact that you don't think that these people are logical.
Yeah, no, I don't. I would imagine that a different study might come up, but I question the validity of the study.
I question the existence of the study altogether, not just the validity, but the existence of that study. I don't think it really exists. I hear all these studies. I keep close watch on this. I haven't heard anything that confirms that, and I've been addressing these issues with insurance companies and physicians and patients who have been kicked out of transplant programs for several years now, and it's always made me really mad to hear how patients are kicked off for testing positive for cannabis, when cannabis is one of the most useful medicines that can help them keep their organs and deal with nausea and pain in a non-debilitating manner. So I'll tell you, it really irks me. And I've had the liver department at OHSU say, well, the insurance companies told us that we had to do that. And I've had the insurance companies say they never heard of it, and they certainly never told OHSU to drop people from the transplant list because they tested positive for marijuana. And finally, the liver transplant branch of OHSU admitted that it was their own internal policy. And there are some physicians up there, Dr. Bennett in particular, who's famous as one of the main physicians who supports anti-marijuana propaganda, and his wife was the vice president of Drug Watch International. Wow. And she's a vociferous anti-cannabis advocate, or person who's trying to throw us all in jail. In fact, she was even quoted one time saying that I belonged in jail. So right here in the Willamette Week, back several years ago, about 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I entirely agree with your belief that the study doesn't exist. I didn't want to push the point, obviously, though, with my status. I since dabbled on the internet, and I'm pretty good at finding things. I found no such study, and I agree.
And just the opposite. There are lots of studies that show that cannabis helps you fight the nausea, fight the pain,
I told them
and
that,
keep your
and
transplants.
I believe that your prejudice that you're referring to showed through very quickly. There are other things for nausea, and they're going to work through it with me without that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your confirmation of a few things, and I'll stab at this in some direction. But boy, you're right. The wall of prejudice is up, and I would think twice about what you confess. It'd be nice to be 100% disclosive with your medical people, but through my recent experience, I'm just still in shock. Maybe it is not always the wisest thing to do.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, especially people who need an organ transplant here in Portland that have to do with the folks up at OHSU. It's really frightening the way they sentence people to death based on their anti-marijuana prejudice and non-scientific propaganda.
Yeah.
But thanks for your call. That really points out a lot of crucial issues for our audience. Our hopes and prayers are with you in your ordeal there.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Okay.
There's so much prejudice.
You know, it really, really makes me mad to hear about that.
It makes me mad, too.
You know, especially given all these scientific articles that we talk about on this show every week in our Hemp News segment, and how there's new studies going on across the world that show how useful cannabis is medicinally for these people, based on propaganda to make these claims and sentence these people to death because they're kicked out of the transplant programs. It's outrageous. It reminds me of the Jim Crow laws.
Exactly.
You know, it's really outrageous. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why the doctors that we have that help patients get medical marijuana permits are completely private. They don't put that information out there. It doesn't go into a patient's main medical record. So if you go to one of these cannabis specialists, then you know that it's completely confidential and your information's not going to get out there in public. In fact, if you need help, if you or a loved one has a chronic pain issue, a chronic nausea issue, AIDS, cancer, glaucoma, a gastrointestinal ailment, a lot of different conditions qualify for medical marijuana. Seizure disorders like epilepsy and spastic conditions like multiple sclerosis. We have a number of doctors throughout the western United States that can help you. Here in the Portland area, if you need a referral to a medical marijuana specialist to get a medical marijuana permit, then call our office number. It's 503-235-4606. And again, that's completely confidential, and other doctors won't find out about it unless you give both your written and verbal permission. And then, again, the number in Portland is 503-235-4606. If you're up in Seattle, we have an office and doctors up there who can help. The number in Seattle is 206-878-1701. That's 206-878-1701. If you're in Denver, you're watching the show in Denver, you can call us at 303-403-9996. That's 303-403-9996. If you're outside of those metropolitan areas, but you need help finding a doctor in Oregon, Washington, California, Hawaii, or Colorado, give us a call at our toll-free number at 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. And we do have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Yes, good evening.
Yep.
Last week on your show, I believe you were talking about you were ingesting the leftovers off of your vaporizer. Was that correct?
Yeah, it still has some THC and a great deal of CBD. Now, CBD is a compound in cannabis that won't get you high, but will help with pain, spasms, seizures, glaucoma, and it has a neuroprotective effect, so it's helpful in neurodegenerative diseases.
Could you cook with it?
Yeah, you can cook with it, or you can just put it straight in a capsule, and with a little capsule kit from any health food store. You could cook with it, certainly.
I've been developing some tincture and was trying to get people that cannot ingest or smoke cannabis but only ingest and get their inputs, and if there was any way to, tell the potency, whether you're using just leaf material or bud material, and the effects for the patient.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like very useful research you're doing there. And, like I had said, for pain and spasms and seizures, there's just as much CBD in the leaf as there is in the flowers. And you can make tinctures or butters or oils or those capsules out of that material, and it could be very, very useful medicinally for those conditions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah. You have an editorial for us tonight, Don.
I do, Paul. Let me tell you a sad story tonight. A story of yet more police corruption, the robbery and harassment of more medical marijuana patients, including me. One of Dr. Orval's patients living in Washington was arrested for growing marijuana. My goodness. How many plants? 40 or 50, you say? No. 30? No. 20? No. 10? No. He was arrested for growing 7 plants. Probably a 60-day supply. Now here's where the story gets good. The search warrant they served on this patient was signed by a county sheriff who was supposedly a pro tem judge. Now, is that illegal or what? The judge cannot be the sheriff. Judges do not serve search warrants. This is a humbug. Because this patient is a friend of mine, my phone number is in his phone. They seized his telephone. A T-shirt like the one I'm wearing now is in his home. They took it and made a picture of both sides of it. One side it says marijuana is great. The other side it says, but children must wait. They also seized a copy of the Hemp News with a picture of Paul Stanford, Tommy Chong, and myself on the front page. I hope they learned something from it. Besides, this patient helps other patients with their medicine. The police says, "Where's your stash?" What stash? They already cut down and stole his medicine. Now they want to steal other patients' medicine too? What stash? Well, then where's all the money? What money? Do they think that helping patients is about money? They want to steal it. It's a robbery. Then the phone calls began. Because they have my phone number now, I got a call at 7:05 Tuesday morning from some dumb cop who claimed to be a patient. Well, nobody calls this grouchy old man at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I told him to F off. Then on Thursday, I made arrangements to donate some medicine to a patient at a particular location. When I got there, the police were already there. That means the cops were listening on my telephone conversation. I drove away and ignored them. So let them listen. Let them follow me. I am a medical patient. I am allowed to transport medicine, as is he. Like Paul Sanford here, I will continue to help patients. Finally, Paul, I'm tired of these snot-nosed, punk young cops that were not even born when I carried the badge of a homicide detective in this city. So to whatever interagency task force is listening to my phone conversations, I offer an appropriate gesture. And that's why I see it tonight, right down here on Hemp Street.
Thank you, Don. That makes me mad, too.
Yeah.
They've got plenty of things to spend their time on. They don't need to be wasting public resources going after sick and dying patients.
Robbery.
It's ridiculous.
But this points out the need for the dispensaries.
Exactly.
Having to meet patients in parking lots, driveways, storefronts is just ridiculous.
The police, for far too long, have come and stolen marijuana that they've then used among their friends and sold on the black market to supplement their incomes. And it's just remarkable how the police always come into medical marijuana gardens or illegal cannabis gardens just as they're ready for harvest. They watch, they wait, they know when the patient or the black market grower is going to harvest, and they come in and harvest that marijuana themselves, and it's not in the evidence locker, folks. I can guarantee you that. It's out there on the market, and it's supplementing their retirement programs. So that's one of the major problems with marijuana prohibition is the police corruption it engenders. And so we need to see marijuana legally regulated and out of the black market. The police need to get out of that and concentrate on real criminals, people who hurt people and steal things, not people who use cannabis in the privacy of their home or for their own private, non-harmful purposes. So there you have it. We have another caller. Hello, caller.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hi.
I just had a couple questions for you. I'm looking to get my medical cannabis permit. However, my diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome is about 5 years old, and so I have to see my primary care again to get that updated. How would I get the most out of my visit with my primary care physician before I see the specialist over there at the THC Foundation?
Well, I would recommend you just tell them all about your current condition and what you're dealing with. If you're having other medical issues, be sure to have those addressed. What you've got to do with these cannabis specialists is they're only treating you for cannabis. They're not there to be a primary care physician. They have to be certain that you're receiving current medical care, and because they can't take responsibility for your entire realm of care since they're just helping you with a single issue. And so I just establish a regular medical dialogue that makes your physician aware of your condition. Now, you've got to make your own choice whether you want to talk about medical marijuana. If you do, then you know it's out there in a public record that could be accessed in the future. But you might want to actually educate your current physician and try to get them involved in the program. And that's always beneficial, because the more doctors who learn about the efficacy of medical marijuana and become educated about how to recommend it, the stronger the medical marijuana program is. And so,
okay, so what are they looking for from me exactly over there at the special clinic?
They're looking just for something that shows
my primary care physician. They wanted some information faxed.
Yeah. Something about your diagnosis, something about your history. Your older records are useful as well, but something just says you are being treated and receiving care in a regular basis.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Thanks for your call.
All right. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Have a good evening. Well, gee, we're down to about 5 minutes left. We might be able to squeeze another phone call or two in. So if you're out there and you have a question for us, call us at 503-288-4448. But then again, we might not. It all depends. They're waving like this back there. No more calls. But just want to remind our viewers out there that if you or a loved one has one of those qualifying conditions, then you can call that number right there on your screen here in the Portland area, and we will have a physician referral service available for you there. It's 503-235-4606 here in Portland. Up in Seattle, the Seattle number is 206-878-1701. For our Denver viewers in Denver, Colorado, the number there is 303-403-9996. And for people in Oregon, Washington, California, Hawaii, and Colorado, outside of those metropolitan areas, you can call us at 1-800-723-0188. And you know what? We have a new website that I'm excited to talk about, and that is hemp.org. So you can get an entry into our web realm by going to hemp.org. I want to remind our viewers that if you're a medical marijuana patient, that tomorrow here in Portland, on the 13th of January, there will be a meeting for medical patients held by Oregon Normal at the corner of Southeast 49th and Hawthorne at Sabala's Mount Tabor Theater. You want to get there at 11:30 because the doors close at 12, and you have to have a medical marijuana permit from the state of Oregon and either be a current member of Oregon Normal or be prepared to join at the door, and then you'll be eligible to come back there for a year, I believe.
And I will be there with a donation.
All right, and I'll be there too. And so you want to go out on a song here, Tim? Sure. Here's Tim Pate and Wolfie playing the blues.
Yes, we are. It's blues time of the year. It is.